Welcome to the Talking Free podcast. As the girl who has always been told she talks too much, can speak with a mouthful of marbles underwater, and can sell ice to Eskimos, I have found the perfect platform to have my say, freely. I am here to share with real people, having raw conversations about authentic stories. It is a place where you can feel safe discussing anything and everything. These stories will make you laugh, cry, debate, wonder, intrigue, and get curious about life as you talk free with Trudy Marie. Please note that the following podcast may contain discussions or topics that could be triggering or distressing for some listeners. I aim to provide informative and supportive content, but understand that certain themes may evoke strong emotions or memories. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or in need of support while listening, I encourage you to pause the podcast and take a break. Remember that it is okay to prioritise your well-being and seek assistance from trained professionals. There is no shame in this. In fact, it is the first brave step to healing. If you require immediate support, please consider reaching out to Lifeline on 13 11 14 or a crisis intervention service in your area. Thank you for listening, and please take care of yourself as you engage with the content of this podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Talking Free podcast, and I'm here today with Fiona Cosgrove, who is a farmer in Mingenew. So welcome, Fiona.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, we had a brief conversation before I hit record, and you said that you were a broadacre and livestock farmer. So can you tell us what that actually means?
Yes, so a broadacre farmer, so basically we do a lot more hectares than, say, someone who has grapes or oranges and things like that. So we crop wheat and lupins and canola, and we also have around 4,000 merino sheep that we have for meat and wool, and we have just over 100 Black Angus cows that we breed for meat purposes as well.
Nice. And you're married?
I am. I'm married with 3 boys, one at high school and 2 in primary school. Yeah.
Okay. And the boys, do they go to school locally, or do, like, the older one, does he board?
Yeah. So I've got 2 locally at Mingenew Primary, which is easy. And then I have one in Geraldton at the boarding house, which he doesn't love, but that's what you have to do when you live in the country, and it means they get the best opportunity that way.
Yeah. And how do you cope as a mum having a child being away at school?
Actually, don't mind it. Don't tell him that. It's not too bad. I mean, obviously you miss them. You definitely do. But it is remembering that he can go and do all the sports he wants to do, and he gets the best of the schooling sort of situation. He's not sitting on the bus for a long time getting to the high schools that are around us. And yeah, it's definitely can be quite upsetting at the start, but once you get the hang of it and they get the hang of it and they make friends, it sort of just goes with the flow. And myself and my husband both were boarders, so it's not something that I'm new to too. I know what it feels like to be a boarder. So yeah, he's going along all right.
Good to hear. And I suppose that's part and parcel of living on a farm in a remote location, that you don't just have those facilities like a high school down the road, and that you do have to make those small sacrifices, but at the same time giving your children the best opportunity possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, if you go to a high school close by, it's likely that they'll only be in a small class of their age group, and that can mean that, they don't get an opportunity to interact with a heap of different kids, and obviously their sport is limited in small country towns for that sort of age group of teenagers. So yeah, being away means, lots of access to all sorts of different things. And even if they don't play sport, if they're into theatre or whatever, reading, they can do so much more when they're in a bigger community than what they can here. So it really is the best of both worlds, I guess. They get to come home to the farm on holidays and long weekends and be around their family, and then enjoy the lifestyle of being close to everything during the week.
Great. And do all the boys help out on the farm?
Yes, we definitely have them, particularly our middle son. He spends a lot of time driving tractors and forklifts and bits and pieces. Yeah, during harvest, once they finish school, we definitely get them on chaser bins and things, and they're pretty useful. They've just got motorbikes for Christmas, so they do a lot of mustering of sheep and things, which they love. And yeah, I think all three of them are definitely, probably the littlest one, he's a little bit lazy, but the rest are out and about doing things and being a part of it, which is really good. And they're learning what it's going to be like if they want, and if this is the path they want to choose when they're a bit older, then, they've got a bit of an idea of what it's like now.
Yeah, and I suppose too that they get to experience and try new skills at a young age that they can then take with them for life, which is so great, like living on the farm.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the two older ones can drive, which is handy for moving vehicles around on the farm. They learn to weld, they learn all sorts of things. And it's just really, I mean, apart from anything, it's really cheap labour. I
suppose farming is a family business, though. It's one of those things that everyone gets involved in some way, shape or form.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we wouldn't work if we didn't have everyone helping out. It would be, if the kids and I just stayed in the house, there wouldn't be that interaction with the family and make us feel part of it. And I think we need those extra hands on deck too when it's busy. We've had harvests before where we've gone after Christmas and everyone else has had to go off to have Christmas with their families. And, if we didn't have us driving chaser bins, well, we wouldn't harvest finish. So it's a bit of you've got to be a bit of a part of it and want to be a part of it. And it shows kids how to work and how their livelihoods come about, how we can afford them to send them to school and how we earn our money and how to work for other people.
I think that's awesome. Now, you also define yourself as a farmer and not just a farmer's wife. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I guess when I first married my husband, I was a farmer's wife because I didn't come from a farm as such, and I've come from pastoral families and we never really lived on the farm, and so I hadn't done a lot of that. I'd done lots of different jobs before I came to Mingini. So I saw myself as a farmer's wife. I've probably swapped now. So back then I would help out here and there and I'd do some cooking and things, and that was about the extent of it. But now I do all the bookwork and I do all the HR, I do all the safety and can be out on a tractor if I'm needed. I'm moving fuel trucks, I'm doing sheep work, I'm doing cattle work, I'm here and there, and I think I'm just as a bigger part in the farm as the guys that are driving the tractors and things. So I think that now, I class myself as a farmer now because I'm not just sitting in the house cooking a few meals here and there. I'm actually doing what has to be done for this farm to actually run as well.
I think that's incredible, and it's such an empowering way to look at it as well, because I think there is that stereotypical farmer's wife, and, given the current series of Farmer Wants a Wife on Channel 9, is that people don't understand what fully goes down in a farm. And I think the fact that you are actually out there, hands-on, learning the ropes, doing the hard yards, exactly as what a normal male farmer would do, I think that's incredible. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's Farmer Wants a Wife is an interesting concept and definitely needed. There are a lot of blokes in the country that really struggle to find someone to come and live out here with them in this lifestyle, but it does paint very rosy glasses on. It's just not at all. Yeah, I do feel sorry for the girls in a way that they're going into this with really no idea of what's coming.
Yeah.
And it's a huge thing on a relationship. I mean, it's one thing to get to know someone and slowly move into where they work, but this is big.
Yeah. So how did you find your farmer then, going back to when you very first came to Minginoo?
Yeah, so I moved to Minginoo. I was working in a jeweller's in Geraldton. I have a retail and hospitality background, and I'd always wanted to be a part of agriculture just from my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents' backgrounds. And so I applied for a couple of jobs and got one here in Minginoo Landmark at the time as a sales admin girl, so starting at the lowest of jobs, which was fine with me. And so I moved here in 2005 on New Year's Day, so it was stinking hot and there was a massive storm went through, and I remember thinking, and I moved out of home to come here, so it was a really big shock. And then when you move to a small town, you sort of have to be a part of, well, you don't have to, but it's a really important part if you can be part of the sporting groups. So I started playing hockey, and then we play hockey hockey, netball and football all on the same day, which is great because it means that we're all interacting with each other. And I guess I met my husband, after footy at the pub, and that was it. We sort of went out for a few years and got engaged and got married, and that's how I became where I am. And I sort of, worked for Landmark for 6 years until I got pregnant with my first son, and then went on maternity leave and haven't really gone back.
Did you move straight to the family farm with him when you first got together?
No. So I had my own housing, so he moved in with me a few years after we'd sort of been dating, and then we moved out of our house, or out of my house, just before my first son was born. And so we moved to a farm 38k south of Mignonette, which was really daunting for me. I had a 6-month-old baby and I was moving to the middle of nowhere, and I remember crying and being really upset at the time and sort of being told that, well, that's just the way it is, that's where you're going to go, and that's the closest house we have. And I can get pretty cranky when I want to. I'm a redhead, so definitely a bit of aggro in there. I mean, I got the hang of it, and we lived there for 12 years. And when I moved 18 months ago, it was the most devastating day. I loved the farm that I was on. I got used to driving half an hour to town every day if I needed to go and getting the kids on the bus and things. But it was just such a beautiful part of the world. And I think it's so daunting at the start, but once you get the hang of it, and it does feel it's your own little piece of paradise. And you drive around, and there's beautiful wildflowers during the season. We had a beautiful view when it's green, and there are so many good things about being a farmer, and there's so many good things about living on a farm. But it really does come with a lot of scary stuff as well. That thing of being alone when the boys are off working, and you see some lights come down the drive and you think, oh my God, who's that? I'm here on my own. But you toughen up for sure. I've really enjoyed farm life and living on the farm. I definitely couldn't live back in town again. For starters, probably get reported to the cops for yelling at my kids. So I couldn't be around even where I am now, I can hear the road, people driving past on the road, and that is too much for me. I just like the quiet.
Cool. And so what had you move farms? Like you said, you moved 18 months ago. What was that transition?
Yeah, so that was a really tricky one for us. So the farm that we were on was a leased farm, which we took out as a lease back when Jeff and I needed a house to live in. We sort of leased a farm to go with that, and we unfortunately missed out on purchasing that farm. So it was a quick pick up sticks and pack up because another company had bought it, and so we needed to be somewhere else. And it meant for us that we have now moved into what was my husband's family home that he grew up in, and my father-in-law sort of half lives in Geraldton, half lives in he's got his own little donga here that he lives in during the week. Yeah, so that comes with its own dramas. You're moving into a house that was built and by your family, and they've always lived here, and so it has a lot of memories and a lot of things that you are not necessarily big for you but are big for them, so you have to be really careful about. And so it's an interesting process, and a very daunting process for daughters-in-law, and it's something that happens to lots of us moving into the family farmhouse. And some in-laws are great and some in-laws are really hard work, and I guess I'm pretty lucky. We did a few renos and things just to get things back on board, and my mother-in-law isn't with us anymore, unfortunately, but I know that she'd be happy with what I've done, and what I like to think that she and I were really good friends, so I like to think that the things that I do here are things that I know she would have loved and would have loved to have done when she was alive. So, but yeah, it can be so hard for girls coming in, and I know lots of girls that have come in and just bullet a gate and gone, right, I'm just going to do it this way and this is why I'm doing it, and not reflect on what it means to not only to your partner but to their siblings and your parents-in-law and stuff. So yeah, it is very, very daunting and really, really hard work, and emotionally draining as well, because it takes a long time for the place to feel like yours. And I'm probably only just getting there now where I feel like it is my house, and it'll be my house for the next 30 years or 40 years till it's time for me to retire and hand it over to my daughter-in-law, I guess.
And I think that that's one of the things that people often probably don't consider, is that farming is not just a business, but it is a livelihood, and often a generational livelihood where families have been on the land for a long time. And as you said, when sons get married or daughters get married and they bring that in-law into the family, they're not just bringing them into the family, they're bringing them into the family business. And people do need to be respectful of what has gone before them. It's not just about them in the here and now. It's everybody that has created this lifestyle for them in the past.
Yeah, for sure. And you might come in as the daughter or son-in-law with your ideas about how things are going to work and what's going to happen here. And yeah, it's like going into any job, though. It's wonderful to think that you've got those ideas and you want to use them. But this is, I guess, this is a next level up from, say, going into a job in any other workplace because, yeah, it's your family. I'm in a 4-person partnership here. So the way our business is structured is that it's my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and my husband and I, and we're the 4 partners. And I didn't become a partner until, I can't remember how many years it was ago, but, you know, I had to work up to that, to where I had been around long enough and part of the business enough to become a partner. And I definitely try and put my 2 bucks worth in now because I think I've been around long enough and have enough experience and to be able to say, hey, hang on, I'd like to have a say in that as well. It's really funny, though, looking back now at the next generation down that are just starting to move on to their farms with their boyfriends and they just come in and you think, oh, my God, love, just relax, because if I was your mother-in-law, I'd lose my shit at you too. This is their livelihood. It's their heart and their soul, and they've given their heart and their soul, some of them for, you know, if it has been in the family for 100 years, if you're taking over from, say, your parents-in-law, they've probably been there for 40 or 50 years. Like that's, and they give everything to it. We work 7 days a week, ridiculously long hours, and everything we give is about our land and about our animals. And it's really, really important to make sure that if you are that new person, boy or girl, that you are being respectful of what has come before you and what is still there, and they're still there and they deserve that respect as well. It's an emotional roller coaster, but it takes a bit more than just rolling in and I'm going to live in this house and we're going to do what we want to do, because it's not like that at all.
Yeah. And so stepping into the family business, and especially with the passing of your mother-in-law, did that bring with it its own set of issues or challenges in taking over? Like you said, you're relatively new to farming and she'd obviously been on the farm for 30, 40 years. What was involved in that?
That was a huge thing for me. And I remember when it happened in the year after and I got asked to go and do a public speaking gig at a women's farming session, and I wasn't able to get there. It was a huge topic at the time, and I have since said to all the young girls I know to make sure that they take the time to spend with whoever's doing the bookwork and things like that, to make sure that you know the ins and outs. So the way it worked for me is that before my mother-in-law, Ali, passed away, she and I she was teaching me how to do the books and things so that she could go off and do her bits and pieces, and so that I knew what was going on. And unfortunately, she went quicker than we thought she would. She was doing really well, and then she went downhill really quickly. And one of the last things she said to me was, I'm so sorry for leaving you with all of this. I haven't taught you enough yet. And that was just, I remember saying, that's all right, I'll work it out. And it was a really hard time to go through, because you just, all of a sudden you are 10 people, like, because she was just 10 people off just doing so many different things. I mean, she was a huge community person and very much loved in the North Midlands and in Minginoo, and take away just that community stuff and just the stuff she did on the farm was just like, oh my God, how am I ever going to keep up with this this stuff that she's built up that then I have to try and keep up with? You know, things like she was well known for doing the best lunch boxes, which, you know, you laugh at now, but, you know, her lunch boxes had amazing sandwiches and amazing baked savoury and sweet goods and all sorts of wonderful things. And I remember at the start, you know, I had these 2 small kids and I was like trying to keep up with everything that she'd done, because, you know, you're like, oh no, but Ali had this in her lunchbox, so that's what you've got to do. I remember thinking, God, and now I'm like, yeah, you can sort your own lunch boxes. And things like really important for the next generation and for my generation and the one up before me is to make sure that everything is noted, everything is written down in some way. And we don't think about things like writing a how-to book for our next person coming along. You know, Ali and I would sit here and we'd work through our Agri Master and she'd show me how to pay bills and all those sorts of things. And she was really good. She actually had done a lot of that for me. But passwords and access to stuff. Like, I still now have a business and they won't give me access to my account because it's in Ali's name still. And trying to explain to places like Telstra and all those wonderful, huge corporations that your mother-in-law has passed away, you do have a death certificate, and no, your father-in-law is not going to sit on the phone for an hour and talk to you about it because he's grieving and he doesn't want to talk about your telephone bill. And it's such a huge thing. So I think one of my biggest things I'd say to everyone teaching their next generation is make sure everyone has that you've given access to the next person down, so that if something happens to you, even if you're just in hospital for a long period of time, that they can make those phone calls and they can check details. Because that's taken me years to be able to have access to everything. Being able to pay bills, I didn't have any access to the bank accounts. Luckily, when you're in rural business, you generally have a great bank manager who you can ring personally and they'll go, right, I'll sort this out. But there's just so much to take in and it's a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. There are 3 things that I just took from that little section that you spoke about. Is one, even up until her dying days, she had such a huge focus on the land and the business and her farm life, in the fact that she was saying to you, oh my God, I'm sorry to leave you with all of this. It's like it becomes so ingrained in you. It's part of who you are, not just what you do. And then you having to step into the shoes of what she has created, and it's so daunting that you've now got to fulfill how she packs her lunch boxes and how she does her business. Is that something you have to now take on? But then also looking at the legacy of farming. And I think that, how things have always been done in the old way of paper business and being able to keep ledgers and keep things like that. And we've become such a digital way of living that your average farmer probably doesn't keep up to date. Like most farmers, I guess, out there probably don't have, like in your father-in-law's generation, don't have those links to the digital way of doing things. And it's your generation and younger that are actually having to bring farms into that next generation. But then that comes with its whole set of issues of access and passwords and details of all of that. I can only imagine what that has been like for you over the last couple of years. I think you're doing an amazing job just from listening to what you've had to experience and endure.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's definitely, I think when I first took over the books, obviously all our wages were still done in a big, specially made big wage books, and you'd write it all out and you'd calculate it all up, and they'd hand me their book with their hours in it each week, and I'd have to find that book and locate where that bloke was working so that I could get the book, and then, pay them and things. And there was still checks. I wrote out heaps of checks and you'd post them off, and everything came in a mail, and it was all, it was still all paper. I am virtually near paperless now. I do everything. I get all the bills pretty much through email. We do all online wage business stuff now. It's all apps. I have apps for your hours. So now I only have to text them and say, oh, you forgot to log off that day. How long do you actually work for? But generally it's really quick. It takes me 10 minutes to do woe to go to pay people, which is awesome. And on that too, then I can have, I have all their details listed. I have all their next of kin there, all those sorts of things that you have to have now. Their tax is easy. Their super gets paid through there quickly. There's a lot more stuff now that we have to do paperwork-wise. But yeah, there's so much more stuff online. I can pay my bills now in one big batch, and that makes life easy, and all your online banking all mixes in together, and it's all wonderful and bloody hard work. And then add on to that all your HR gear. So making sure that, you're doing all the right things by the HR, and safety then is just another world of, and that's just a world of hurt. I'd actually almost love to have a daughter-in-law now to just pound that off to. I'm living in this world of we really do have to be a lot more aggressive in our safety on farm, and the more accidents that happen, the harder that gets for us. And I don't, it is what it is. I think I'll probably get shot down for saying it, but we are breeding people that don't think for themselves, and everything is, you've got to say to someone, don't put your hand in that PTO because it turns and your hand will get pulled off. Tie your hair up because it'll rip your skull off. Don't climb up that ladder without a harness on, or just silly things that we probably thought, I'm a practical person, so I would go, yeah, probably should think that through before I do that. But there are feel like there are so many people now that just do stuff and you think, oh my God, what were you thinking? And we now have to factor all of that in everything we do here. I'm not allowed to let someone get on a motorbike unless I've watched them ride the motorbike, taught them how to use the motorbike, and got them to sign a piece of paperwork to say that they can ride a motorbike. It slows our business down. I mean, I'm all for safety. It's important, I don't want to, especially with the new legislation that says, if someone dies on our farm, I mean, obviously it's awful to lose someone, but we lose two people because then one of us goes to jail as well. It is such a huge thing for us now in the farming world, this safety stuff. And we need someone full-time almost to do it. So I'm a full-time bookkeeper. My accountant would love to have me 2 days in the office a week. I maybe do one. And then you've got your HR, which, is not too big. But safety-wise, I could easily spend a day a week doing safety. If you've got a truck, so we have 3 big heavy haulage trucks. You've got to have auditing to go with that. That'll take a day sometimes if I'm doing things. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's full-time. Add on to that the fact that, I have 3 kids and I volunteer a lot in town and I do my other jobs and I coach hockey and I play hockey. Because, in a small town, you need to give everything you've got to keep your business going, but also to keep your town going. So it is hard work, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And it sounds like that in your particular instance is that given your mother-in-law has passed and it sounds like it's just you and your husband and your father-in-law on the farm, is that you don't have that generational help either. So some of the other farms that potentially have still those generations of the mother and father or the grandparents still helping, and then the generations of multiple siblings with multiple partners that are all helping, but you guys are literally like doing it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, my brother-in-law has just now got a partner, and that's awesome. And I look forward to having a partner in crime. So, another lady on the farm, because up until now, I think it's just been me and the female cat. But yeah, I think there's a lot of these, some of them might have 2 or 3 generations of women helping the men out as well. And yeah, it's tricky when there's just you. And I'm very used to it, obviously. Ali died in 2015, so I've had a long time to get used to it. And that brings with it the dramas of going, oh, shit, am I ready to let another girl in? Because I really like the way I do stuff. And I'm not sure, is she going to be able to do it the way I want to do it, or am I going to have to, change things? But it's like being a mother-in-law, because there is 10 years difference between my husband and my brother-in-law, and he's a lot younger than us. And so, yeah, it does feel like we've got that generation gap. Yeah, I think there are lots of families that are really lucky that have that definite step down in women. So there's the next daughter or granny's still around even, it can be hard because there are so many jobs that stereotypically fall to us. And if there's more of us, it makes it life easier. But yeah, it would be nice if people looked at us and went, oh, actually, just because you're a girl, you don't have to do that job. Maybe the boys could help with that as well. Same as I help with your stuff.
Fair enough. I don't blame you. I've heard it in the past is farmers' wives almost are like FIFO wives, because there are so many times that isolation on the farm where, your husband, I know seeding's going on at the moment and the boys are out, but it's not just a little 8-hour day like most people think. It's sunrise to sundown, sometimes later, that you just don't get to see them. You're probably passing ships.
Absolutely, ships in the night for sure. I think my husband at the moment is doing sort of sheep work and things, so he's not on the tractor at the minute. But there were seasons in the last few years where harvest isn't too bad, because generally they go first thing in the morning and they might knock off in enough time to you to see them at night, depending on what the weather's like and things. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes the only way you can see them is actually go and sit on the head of yourself for an hour. And I usually go out with a list of things that I need to talk to him about and go, right, this is what I need to run past you. What do you think about this? But seeding is terrible because obviously the night shift goes all night. You might, depending on whether you're working your 12 p.m. to 12 a.m.s or whether you're doing your 6 to 6s, or depending on your shifts, you might not see them at all because they come in, they have a shower, they go to bed, and then you've got to keep everyone quiet in the house, which when I had little kids I hated. And then they go off at night again, you see them for dinner and that's it, and they're gone. And the kids, I think it's the kids that really feel it. They're the ones that they just want daddy time, and they just, it's just not possible. I think we also do this thing where, we'll just chuck our kids on the tractor for a while, which I think is going to have, for the safety stuff, unfortunately, for a lot of us, we're going to have to stop doing that. That's one of the things that they've sort of said to us that they don't want us doing, is having our kids in tractors and things. And that's really sad, because that actually is going to stop those kids from having that bit of daddy time. And for FIFO, I mean, obviously we seed for only, generally, depending on how big or small you are, some people might only seed for a couple of weeks. For us, it's probably going to be a month, depending on, we have a 100-kilometre radius, so things take a bit longer because we've got to travel and get our gear there and stuff. So it does take a bit longer. And a month for a little kid to not see their dad is a really long time. home. Everyone's different. So like we always have a day off. We go to sport on that day and do what we need to do. Others might work 7 days a week, but then they miss out on that family time. And the FIFO thing, your husband might go away for 2 weeks, but be home for a whole week. So that whole week he's home. He can pick the kids up from school. He can drop them off. He can make them dinner. He can do all those sorts of things. We don't have that because even in the non-busy times, they're still going at 6 or 7 in the morning and they're still not getting home till 5 at night. So there's no like, Dad, can you come and kick the footy with us? No, because it's already dark. There's a lot of that sort of thing. So it really can be lonely and parenting can be hard. But again, it depends on who your partner is and how they were brought up and how they see things to be as to how that's going to work for you. Definitely something to have a look at. I think when you get on the farm, definitely see how your father-in-law does things because that's very much what your husband's going to be like, more than likely.
Interesting way to look at it, actually, because obviously those things are generationally learned just from their experience of their own upbringing, and they can go two ways. They can either follow 100% in their footsteps or go, no, I want to do things differently with my kids. And that's not always practical.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen differences, definitely. I know blokes around town that are way more hands-on than their fathers were, and that's awesome. But they've probably had to go against everything in their being to get to that point too. Women are the same. I do what my mum does. She went to work, she did things, and we all we run with that same sort of thing, and our relationships are often the same. You know, what my mum and dad had as their relationship is what I want to see as a good relationship, and you know what Jeff's mum and dad has a relationship he sees as that's what he likes, and then you've all got to make that mesh all together for you, and it's very interesting.
Yeah. And so just on that, and obviously dealing with the lifestyle and the work and stuff, how do you cope, and what is the isolation like being on your own?
How I cope is that I'm highly medicated. I like to laugh about it because I think mental health is such a stigma, but I have depression and anxiety, and I used to have high anxiety and mild depression, and then I swapped to high depression and mild anxiety, and I go between the two depending on time of life and where I'm at with my family and things. But I didn't cope very well sometimes, and I still don't cope very well sometimes. Sometimes I have days where I can barely do anything and I just want to watch TV all day because that's the depression side of it creeping in. I think the most important part is to make sure that you have access to a group of women. That could be a group of men, it can be a group of whoever you want, but someone that you can talk to. And I think it also, like particularly when you have your small children, when you have your babies and things, that whole thing of going, oh no, my baby needs to sleep between this time and this time, so I can't go anywhere. Then you're stuck at home. And I think you have to push past that. In my early years, play groups on a Friday at 9 o'clock. Well, it doesn't matter what Tom, Dick or Harry are going to bed at whatever time, they come to play group because I need to go to play group. It's important to, if you've got a mother's group or a play group or something, to take that time to go there, because even if that kid screams for the rest of the day, you have had an hour where you've just talked rubbish and had a cup of tea, someone's held your baby, and you've just had time to just think about you. That then carries on after your kids get a bit older. So take the time to say to your partner, I'm going to go and play sport. You're a parent as well. You take them tonight. I'm going to hockey training on my own, or I'm going netball training on my own. Take that time for you and get some mates. They don't have to be heaps of mates. They can be one really good friend, two really good friends. For me, it's massive. I have so many friends, and they're not just here and now friends. They're friends forever, and they're friends that I know that have been so supportive of me. When Ali passed away, they were amazing. When my little brother passed away last year from cancer as well, and you've got amazing friends when it's your friends that come 100 Ks to bring food for the wake, and they run the wake, and you look around when you're doing the eulogy and it's just a sea of your family, but a sea of your personal friends. And any time they've seen me have anxiety attacks, they've talked me through it, they've helped me out. I know that I can make a phone call at any time to one of God knows how many people, and they will come when I need them. And I hope that I am that person to a lot of people as well. And I think that's what gets you through in the end. Having a supportive husband is wonderful, a supporting partner is great, and in that as well. But sometimes they've got a lot on in their mind as well. And just having that person that you can ring, go and have a cup of tea with, get off the farm and just go and have a yarn is how we get through this. and have a hobby, whether it's sewing or gardening or reading or walking or whatever. Do that, because that makes you feel some extra worth as well in yourself, because you might do hours and hours of bookwork but you get to the end of that and you're exhausted and you think to yourself, what has that actually done for me? And at the time you don't realise that actually, yeah, it's doing wonderful things for you, because that's your business. It's got your name on the books and, you know, you're going to benefit from that. But walking out into the garden and going, oh, these flowers are all mine and I've done this, is just such an amazing feeling. Or finishing off some sewing and giving a gift to a new baby that you've made yourself is also such a heartwarming thing, and it lifts you back up from whatever hole you've fallen into. And yeah, that's how we get through this, that it has to be a together thing. Don't ever isolate yourself by sitting at home and going, oh, poor me, my husband's working really hard and I don't have anyone to talk to. Well, you do. We're going to talk to you. If you come and there'll always be that crazy person, usually me, that will say, oh, hi, welcome to town, and then just start in your face. I'll always be there. If you need to ring me, even if I'm having a shit day, I'm still going to say to you, what's going on? What can I do to help? Can I come? Do you need a shower while I hold your baby? Do you need me to come and pull a few weeds for you? Do you need me to make you a meal? That's how our community is what keeps us going, for sure. And our community is big.
I think that's such an important thing, like in mental health in general, where we've sort of come, especially in the last few years, what the world has been going through, is that we've become so isolated in our homes and stuff, and we forget how much that it is our communities that keep us together. It is that whole adage, like you said, of like having support with your children, the old saying of it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to live in general. We need to rely on each other more for those mental health days, because what I've learned even in my own journey is that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Like, you need to have your own cup full to keep going, and sometimes it takes members of your community to help you fill that cup back up in whatever shape and form that takes. So whether it is sport or whether it is a craft or hobby, or, you know, it is just that cup of tea and a chat just for the sake of it, to really actually empower you. Today's just today. I've still got tomorrow. I just love the fact that you've got this amazing support network around you that you've obviously had since your children were little, and now has you live on the farm and do what you need to do, but in a safe space.
Yeah, thank my lucky stars every day that I have that crew. And I think too, the young girls that don't have kids yet, they still have that group as well. I think that it's important to say that if you don't have kids, there's no reason why you still can't be a part of that group. I've got lots of friends that don't have kids, aren't going to have kids, haven't got kids yet. You know, I'm still here for them. Just because you don't have children, your children have moved on, or that you don't play sport, that there isn't a spot for you in town. Yeah, whether it might be the crafting group or a men's shed, if you like a bit of woodwork and things like that, or if you just want to go and hang out down the pub and have a drink with someone, just talk to someone. You know, there is so many different places that you will find your spot. Doesn't matter what age you are, what gender you are, what you're into, there will be someone that you can have a yarn with in your community. And it's not just your town, it's your community. So my community is the whole of North Midlands now. Playing sport for me has meant that I have, and my children and my husband playing sport, has meant that I have friends in all of the North Midlands towns now. And I can go and have a chat with them at any time I want, and I can go and play against any team and have a yarn with those girls and boys. And yeah, I think that's the amazing thing about farming as a whole too, is that we're not just limited to our town. We're even the whole of the wheat belt. I can go to all sorts of towns and know someone and have a chat with them, and you found something in common and you kept chatting. So yeah, I think make sure you're out there and put yourself out there. I know it's hard at the start, but it's worthwhile in the end.
Oh, look, and I can totally relate to that, you know, having to move to a small town like Minginoo, even as a police officer's wife, and to get involved in the community. It's about helping out at those blue light discos to get to meet family, and joining the local art and craft collective to meet those ladies, and just introducing myself to somebody like yourself. If you don't put yourself out there, you don't know what's possible. And if you choose to play that victim and stay isolated in your own house, then you're kind of perpetuating the problem yourself. Just taking those small steps and having faith that there is somebody else out there, and they may not be walking in your shoes, but they've got a story to tell that's really similar, and there's something relatable that you are going to find a connection. You've just got to look for what that connection is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see a lot of people, and probably in the last generation and now, of women in particular, moving away or not staying. You've got your divorces and your separations and things that happen because that girl has come here with an idea in their head of what this is going to be like. And they get here and they don't give it enough time, or they don't give it enough effort to see what beautiful things can come from this. They just come here and they go, oh God, this is not what I'm used to, and I can't go shopping, and I can't do this, and oh my God, I've got to drive half an hour to go to the post office. And it becomes this big thing, and then they go, I can't adjust to this, and off they pop. And then they leave poor Farmer Joe devastated, heartbroken, and then going, well, what do I do now? Do I go with you or do I stay here? And then add to that children, which is the hardest thing I hate seeing now, is women leaving and taking the kids with them. And then, obviously if you've got a bad relationship, that's a completely different story. But if you're leaving because this isn't what you imagined it to be, I just think, maybe at the start you probably should have had to think about what this was going to be like and really thought about it before you gave your all, before your farmer gave their all to you. So I think make sure you know what you're getting yourself into, and I hope that this helps with that. But also give yourself time to adjust. Give yourself time to find that niche for you and find that spot for you. And look, if you've been here 10 years and you really hate it, well then fine, that's so be it. But just make sure you've tried every avenue before you pick up sticks and leave, because I think you leave someone heartbroken, and whether it's your farmer or your kids because they're not being able to stay here with their family or be around their friends and this lifestyle. And yeah, it's a big hard decision, and I don't want to be the person that makes that. It sounds awful about it, but I do think if you're coming here, give it everything you've got first before you bail on it.
Yeah, and I think, you know what, in some ways that's true, not just about farming, but about life in general. I think we're in a society or a culture at the moment of everyone's just looking for a quick fix, and if it doesn't work in 5 seconds, then they move on to the next thing. And we don't have that longevity when we look back in the past of our parents and grandparents' generations of they stuck at things for a long time. And like you said, I'm not saying stick at it if it's not working or it's dangerous or there's a certain situation, but at the same time, it's giving it a red hot crack and putting in some effort that you just never know what's possible at the other end. And people often say to me, even like in my policing career, that I worked around at different remote locations and like, God, how do you go driving 1-2 hours to get somewhere? And it's normal. You'd be amazed at how amazing those trips in a car can actually be when you're listening to a podcast or listening to music or just thinking about different things. So many things can get planned and worked through and processed just by a quick drive to, whether it's even at the moment from Minginyu, whether it's to Dongra for a half an hour or Geraldton for an hour, or like for you out on the farm somewhere, that it becomes part of your life and what you're willing to put up with and live with. And most people look at it as too hard.
Yeah, so we drive an hour between some of our farms, and I think I had to go down to one of them the other day, and yeah, it is a long way. You think, oh God, but I had to go. It had to be done. And once you're in the car, you're like, actually, this is really nice. I haven't been down here for a while. You might be listening to music or a podcast, and you're looking around and you're looking at what's around you and just taking it all in. And I think the other thing too is I come from a family where we moved around a lot. My dad is an ex-policeman too, and my mum's a nurse, and we moved around a lot doing different jobs when I was a kid. And I remember my dad saying to me probably 10, 15 years ago, tell me, was it bad for you? Did you hate it? And I remember saying to him, no. At the time I was probably thinking, oh, these are my friends, I don't want to move, because we'd never lived anywhere longer than 2 years until I moved to Minginyu. But the difference being that, so Jeff grew up in this house and he'd been on holidays, but he'd never lived anywhere other than this house and the house in town that they lived in. And when he went off to uni, and that's it. I have seen so much of our state. I've lived everywhere between Perth and Darwin. And I can say that as kids, we would go camping, we would go fishing. There are so many different lifestyles I've tried, so many different cultures, so many different people I've met. And kids are so resilient to that. And I think people go, oh, I don't want to put my child in the car for an hour and drive them to Geraldton because it's really hard work for them. You know what? They'll be fine. We'd drive from Darwin to Geraldton for Christmas every year, and it took us 2 days. I don't know how my parents did it, because I swear to God, I would have murdered my children. But kids just want to try new things. They'll be fine. Get out and see the world, but come back and enjoy what we have.
Yeah, and building resilience at any age, it's such a skill that I think has been forgotten because, as like I said, over time, we've just become this quick fix, quick replacement. No one wants to wait a while. We live in the state of WA of wait a while, and it's just part and parcel of that whole lifestyle. And sometimes good things come to those who actually wait, or those people who actually have to drive for a little bit to get what they want. It just makes you appreciate the finer things in life. It really does.
That is exactly what I was going to say. It really makes you appreciate, and it makes your children appreciate. So like, we don't go to Perth very often. We might get down there once a year. So for my kids, when they get to Perth, like everything is exciting. You know, even things like skyscrapers, escalators, glass front lifts, like it's just random stuff that you think, oh God, that's sad. But they still get a kick out of it. And I still get a kick out of it too, because you don't see that stuff around us. So it's all a bit exciting. You know, they love going to a hotel, and it just gives them such a different look at life when everything's quiet here, and they appreciate more of what they have and can see.
Totally agree. And it's appreciating those small things. So in saying that then, like, what is some of your favorite things about living on the farm?
Definitely not the flies.
I'm with you on that.
And I may have spent the bulk of my life in the northern part of Western Australia, but I do not adjust well to heat. That's just my high blood pressure and red hair. But I love the open space. Like, I love that as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm looking out my office window into a tree that needs trimming. But the rest behind that is just beautiful paddocks and stuff. And it's open spaces, which are highly important to getting yourself through the world of depression. Open space, fresh air, and the skyline. I also love the fact that no one can hear me yelling or swearing, which is great. Particularly my children. It's quiet, feels safe. It really does feel safe. No one's looking over at you. Yeah, it's awful to think that people are judging you, but no one's judging you out here because no one can see what you were doing. It's your own piece of paradise, and it's a big piece of paradise too. It's not just 3/4 of an acre. It's so much space. And you can jump in a car and go for a drive down a river and not see anyone, and go for a walk and not see anyone. And I love that this is ours. This is what we make it to be, and it is what I make it. So if it looks like rubbish, then I get shitty. And I get onto the people going, come on, we need to tie this up. But it's mine, which I think is really important, and that's what I love about being out here. And there's so much more to the lifestyle as well, but being here is good for my heart, my soul.
And look, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. If it's good for your soul and you wake up every morning happy with where you are, what better place could you be?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's definitely things that you just go, oh, God, you know, turn that tractor off, it's too noisy. And we all have them. Last week I had some cows knock over some of my plants that I just got going after the hot weather, and I was like, if I was in town, this wouldn't happen. But if I was in town, I wouldn't. This beautiful view and this beautiful space to myself. And my children wouldn't be able to just absolutely run around and do whatever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your life as a farmer and what goes on in this day and age. Everything gets romanticized, or we only hear a snippet of what people actually go through and experience. And to have your raw, vulnerable conversations and honest conversations, I think will just give the listeners something really to think about the next time they're either one, talking to a farmer, two, considering becoming a farmer's wife and moving out onto the land, or three, just appreciating what our farmers have to actually give to our community. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate being given the opportunity to get the word out there, and I certainly want people to feel like that they could do this. There isn't anyone that couldn't give this a go, and it's an amazing thing. But it's a wonderful lifestyle, and if you're given the opportunity, do take it and hold on to it. And we hope that we can keep it the way it is, and a wonderful place to be. So if you are talking to a farmer and you do hear the problems that we go through, because we do go through a lot, and we certainly go through a lot of political issues, listen to what we've got to say, because our hearts and souls are all in this, and we give everything we have to it. So we would never do anything to hurt what we've got.
Yeah, and I can hear that. And I'd just like to finish off by asking you, what is one thing that you are grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my lifestyle and my family and my friends. I'm grateful that I have someone that I can always ring and be around if I need them.
Thank you for tuning in to the Talking Free podcast today. If you have an idea for a future episode or a story you'd like to share, then please message me, as I am always up for real, raw and authentic conversations. If you love what you are hearing, then please be sure to subscribe to hear all the latest episodes and spread the word to your family, friends and colleagues so they too can listen in. If you are sharing on social media, then please be sure to tag me at _Trudy_Marie_ so I can personally acknowledge you. I am always open to comment about how these episodes have resonated with you. It would also mean the world to me if you were to leave a 5-star review to ensure the Talking Free podcast is heard by more listeners around the world. And remember, lead with love as you live this one wild and precious life.